What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Wine Cave. Medicare for all, man. Andrew Yang he's on a little press tour a little bit lately. He was on MSNBC. He ended that boycott the other day. Good performance. Gave him a bunch of those same old typical stump questions. I was happy with that. Then he followed that up with this appearance on ABC, which you've probably seen quite a bit of lately with Jonathan Karl.
But Medicare for all is Medicare for all, right? I mean,
well, our health care plan would be based on Medicare and expanding it over time to more and more Americans. You lower the eligibility age and then you make it widely accessible.
A lot of people are really wilding out about this interview. And, you know, I did a video previously on Andrew Yang's Medicare for all position. And in this interview, he kind of basically said what I've been saying, which is that this is a language thing. And the real point of all of this is that Andrew Yang is talking to the American people. He's not talking to the pundits. He's not talking to these people who are hardcore Bernie fans, studying all the legislation. No. He's talking to regular people who just want to know that they're going to have insurance or they're not going to have insurance or whatever. Like they just want to know the basic information. They're not reading the bill. I would be curious to know how many people have actually read the Medicare for all bill that these people are going on about. Now, I'm talking specifically about progressives because that's where this is coming from. I told you guys, I'm no progressive, all right? I'm intrigued by Andrew Yang. He's a good dude, and that's it. I want to talk about this article out of the Houston Chronicle titled, Sanders' Medicare for All is all bad for the U.S. Now, there was a quote that I just absolutely, let me see if I can find this quote. Where is this thing? It's called Medicare for All, Progressive Campaign Killer. He's just basically talking about how all these people around the country have run on these very progressive platforms and how it's basically didn't work out very well for him. I just love this quote here at the end. Once thought to be the fulfillment of an age-old dream of universal health care, Medicare for All is more likely one of those ingenious Acme devices Wile E. Coyote uses to catch the Roadrunner. It's a catapult that launches you into the stratosphere and right into a wall. And Andrew Yang only supports the spirit of Medicare for all for that reason. He knows the data. How many people know what the Medicare for all bill says? That's all I care about. I don't care about the brand name. What's in the bill? Okay? And does the average American know what the bill says? According to the data, people don't really support what Bernie Sanders is proposing. They just support the phrase Medicare for all without really knowing what it means. If you like your healthcare plan, Bernie Sanders says, tough luck. He'll take it away if he's elected president. Give the Democratic candidate some credit for his straight talk about his version of Medicare for all, but if Sanders' plan is the gold standard, after all, he wrote the bill, it is also the most problematic, eliminating 2 million jobs and creating a system that most Americans don't want. This is the point I want you guys to get out of this entire video. Most Americans don't want this plan, no matter what it's called. I don't care if it's called Bernie Care, because if you look at the polling of the phrase Medicare for all, it was very positive. It was in the 70% or something like that. But then when they started going back and revising those polls and adding, hey, do you support it if we're going to get rid of private insurance? Do you support it if the government is going to be the only one who administers the plan? Do you support it if it's going to cause a tax? Whatever different questions they started asking, like the actual substance to the bill, once the substance started being asked, the support started to slip a little bit. So don't let these people, again, I'm not calling them progressives because I'm trying to name call, because I'm letting you know this is a certain group of people. This is not everybody. So when ABC had Andrew Yang on there and they're trying to bully him into saying he doesn't support Medicare for all, but he's not trying to appease this small group of people who are hardcore, oh, if it doesn't say Medicare for all, then I don't want it. Okay, y'all don't want it. Fine, whatever. The Democratic Socialist from Vermont has proposed adopting a democratic socialist healthcare system that no European country has dared to implement. The government would give residents an ID card that entitles them to the medical attention they require free of charge. Doctors, hospitals, and other providers would send their bills to the federal government, which would pay them from tax revenues. Patients wouldn't pay any deductibles, co-pays, and most importantly, insurance premiums. The plan includes long-term care, but not all prescription drugs. Every other single-payer system requires at least a copay, making Sanders' plan the most generous in the world. We spend twice as much per person as do the people of any other country on earth, Sanders said during his October Democratic presidential debate. If we stood together, we could create the greatest healthcare system in the world. Polling shows that most Americans support a healthcare overhaul. 71% of Democrats like Medicare for all, at least until they discover the consequences. The most obvious bugaboo, love that word, which is really the least of Medicare for all's problems, is the cost. Everyone's taxes would raise significantly, with at least a 7.5% increase in the payroll tax on employers and a 4% increase on workers. There's a wealth tax too. Houston Chronicle, bravo, man. You don't have to. If this guy made a video, I feel bad making this video. This guy deserves all the likes. Crushed this. This is fantastic journalism. I love this dude. I do think it's appropriate to acknowledge that taxes will go up, Sanders admitted. They're going to go up significantly for the wealthy and for virtually everybody. The tax increase they pay will be substantially less than what they were paying for premiums out of pocket. Sanders is probably right. His plan will save money by providing more preventative care and treating illnesses quicker and therefore at a lower cost. The problem is that most people will only notice the tax increase and overlook the savings, or at least that's what politicians fear, and why they are reluctant to make the swap. The most significant savings, though, would come from banning employer-based insurance, imposing price controls, and eliminating the administrative costs from private insurance. The United States spends more than twice as much on administration than most developed nations, according to the peer-reviewed journal Health Affairs. Taking insurance companies out of the supply chain would save money. But most of the cost reduction would come from laying off 2 million people, according to an independent analysis. Was 18% of our economy is contingent on this healthcare industry we're about to destroy? We will transition those workers from sitting behind a desk arguing with you into a more productive area of providing real healthcare, Sanders promised in the November debate. Most of those 2 million people would probably prefer to keep their current jobs. Not to mention, investors in the $600 billion health insurance industry would prefer to keep their companies intact. The issue is whether the Democratic Party has the guts to stand up to the healthcare industry, which made $100 billion in profit. In dozens of columns, I have decried every aspect of our healthcare system, from patients who ignore medical advice to doctors who overcharge to insurance companies who put profits over people. The U.S. healthcare system is undisputably broken. Medicare for all, though, is not the answer, for political, cultural, and practical reasons that have nothing to do with the efficiency and everything to do with our nation's character. American consumers want choices. Employers like using healthcare insurance as a prerequisite, and competition improves efficiency. The German system, where citizens' employers are required to purchase plans from nonprofit insurance companies, is a better model for the United States. Every resident receives a basic plan that guarantees access to care, but if you want bells and whistles such as private hospital room, you or your employer can pay more. Medicare for all is a great slogan, and Sanders is a lively rabble-rouser, but his plan faces certain death in Congress and likely at the ballot box too. Shout out to Chris Tomlinson. A 62% majority of swing state voters in Michigan, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin called Medicare for all a bad idea. New analysis of the 2018 midterm election results by Emory University. Political science professor Alan Abronowitz. Democrats who supported Medicare for all in the 60 closest House elections did significantly worse than those who did not. Places Donald Trump won in 2016 by less than 10 points that were either open seats or a Republican incumbent. Just 42% of the Democratic candidates who publicly supported Medicare for all won in 2018, while 72% of Democrats who did not support the legislation came out on top. In a Kaiser Family Foundation poll last month, 55% of Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents said they would prefer to vote for a candidate who would build on the existing law, while 40% said they wanted a candidate who supported replacing the ACA, Affordable Care Act, with Medicare for all. The bulk of polling on the issues affirms the Kaiser findings. Democrats, when given the choice, would rather make the current law better than rip up and replace it with something new. Andrew Yang is out here trying to win, man. I know Bernie has got a point that he's got to prove. I get it. I respect his consistency. The point, Warren and Sanders are all in on a proposal that the majority of Democrats don't want. and which exerted a drag on Democratic candidates in the 2018 midterms. Earlier this month, a new poll from the Kaiser Family Foundation and the Cook Political Report finds that nearly two-thirds, 62% of swing votes in the key states of Michigan, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin rate Medicare for All as a bad idea. See, that's what I don't like about this whole Wisconsin and, or not Wisconsin, Iowa and New Hampshire thing. People got it all confused. Like, you got to win more than those two states. Like, I understand that coming into this thing, they kind of lead the way. But at a certain point, we got other places in the country that matter. And in those other places, people think a little bit differently. That's a way. But we're talking about candidates who want to radically change our system. And when you talk about that, that's when people really dig in their heels and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't know if I want to go that far. Union members in this labor stronghold state have expressed unease with Medicare for All, fearing that they would lose health benefits that were hard-won over years of negotiations. So you notice you've been hearing Andrew Yang say that phrase more and more lately, that unions have fought for these certain healthcare plans, that they don't want to switch them up. Andrew Yang is paying attention to the data. That's why whenever I do a video for you guys, I can literally just pull up these studies. And there it is every single time. It all just comes together. He's not making this stuff up. He's not just saying stuff to get people excited. He's like, whoa, new data. Let me put that into my supercomputer up here. And let's see if this is consistent with what I've been saying or if this is a bad idea. A survey of 600 likely voters commissioned by the Detroit Regional Chamber this summer found that a majority opposed the Medicare for All proposal to eliminate private health insurance, as proposed by Democratic presidential candidates Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Michigan illustrates the risk Democrats face in swing states. The policy appeals to Democrats' liberal base, but is less popular with moderates, polls show. Stop letting this small minority confuse you into believing that everybody is all about Medicare for All. The previous reporting has also made clear the political risk of embracing a one-size-fits-all system. The Washington Post reports that Democrats in swing states are increasingly worried that the outspoken embrace of Medicare for All by Bernie Sanders and other top presidential hopefuls could hurt their chances of keeping the House in 2020. The Hill reports that centrist Democrats who helped their party win back the House majority with victories in key swing states last fall are sounding the alarm that the liberal push for Medicare for All could haunt them as they try to defend their seats and keep control of the House. A majority of those Democrat members who flipped their seat from red to blue focused on strengthening the 2010 healthcare law and protecting coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. Roll call reports noting the significant risk for any politician that proposes dramatic change and uncertainty in a system that is central to Americans' well-being. This is why it's hard for Bernie to get those 60-year-old people who are about to retire who are like, why are you trying to change this thing I've been putting my money into all my life? You're trying to tell me that all of a sudden you want to change it. Is Bernie Sanders the front runner? Because I heard somebody call Bernie Sanders the front runner today, and I was just like, what polls you looking at? Joe Biden is winning this thing. Like, I'm not saying he's going to win. I'm just saying he's winning currently. He ain't running on Medicare for All. So what are y'all talking about? Stop telling me everybody supports Medicare for All, man. You're falling into this progressive camp. And that's going to mean when you're going to look for news, you go into these progressive outlets. But these progressive outlets have their candidate of choice. And their candidate of choice is not Andrew Yang. Now, they gave him a little love early on. He was good. He was good meme material. He's relevant. I think he was popping in the algorithm, and he's very, very searchable and things like that. So they took advantage of that. But what they're seeing now is that Andrew Yang is starting to turn into like a viable candidate, and they can't have that because that's going to hurt their favored candidate. So now they're pushing him away. And that's what you guys are seeing. It's clear where he derives his policies from, even in looking at this video and seeing why Andrew Yang supports what he supports. When I give you all this data back to back, you can clearly see why Andrew Yang supports the spirit of Medicare for All and not the bill, because most Americans don't either. He's just being consistent. And if you thought that Andrew Yang supported Medicare for All, the bill, well, then you never read his platform in the first place. He never said he supported the bill. If you check his website and you read through what his Medicare for All was, it wasn't the bill. So what are you talking about? He didn't lie to you. Most Americans have never read the Medicare for All bill. Most Americans think the phrase Medicare for All is synonymous with Bernie Sanders, but they don't know the substance of the Medicare for All plan. because most Americans don't read the bill. Most Americans never read the bill. Most Americans don't support the bill. They just don't realize it because they support the phrase Medicare for all, which is why Andrew Yang supports the phrase Medicare for all. He's just giving you what you want.